there. We'll keep you posted on that. This morning, we are hearing firsthand accounts of Iranian-Americans who say they were detained at the Washington border with Canada.
Our state's chapter on the Council of American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, says those detained reported their passports were confiscated and they were questioned about their political views and allegiances. Let's bring in Brandy Cruz, who is joined by CAIR's executive director. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to all of you. Masi Fouladi, thank you for being here. Not only are you the executive director of CAIR, which is what capacity you're here to speak to us today, but you're also a dual U.S.-Iranian citizen. So I think it's important for my viewers to understand your perspective coming into this conversation. A few minutes ago, we heard from Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He talked about the decision by the United States to kill General Soleimani. I want you to listen to what he had to say.
It was the right decision. We got it right. The Department of Defense did excellent work, and the president had a entirely legal, appropriate, and a basis, as well as a decision that fit perfectly within our strategy and how to counter the threat of malign activity from Iran more broadly.
Was it the right thing to do? Did the U.S. do the right thing in that killing?
So, given the amount of information that's been shared publicly, it's really hard for the American people to make any kind of decision on what occurred. We know that previous presidents, including George Bush, decided not to take this kind of action because he knew the ramification it would have in the region. So given the fact that we're not getting much more information out of the administration, us taking their word on this is the right thing is just not enough. And we've seen with Iraq, unjust wars just lead to death of American soldiers and citizens and just innocent civilians. So I can't see how going to war and provoking war at this time, given all of the issues that we have in this country and that we need to fix, could be the right thing.
Forgive me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but so you don't care that Soleimani is dead. You just care under the circumstances in which he was killed.
I want America to make the best decision for our country, for our people here, and I want to make sure that innocent lives in the Middle East are not being taken. And the truth of the matter is right now in the Middle East, there's so much conflict and there's so much imbalance. I don't see how, contributing to that chaos more helps anyone in the world.
Innocent lives in terms of?
Innocent Iranians, innocent Iraqis.
Not Soleimani.
Okay,
I just want to make sure because I was confused with the situation.
Obviously, Soleimani has contributed to mass crimes all over the world, and no one, from our perspective, is really mourning his death. What we're concerned about is the ramifications for the entire world. We don't want to see us or our allies being dragged into another war, and we don't want to see innocent Iranian lives being lost.
Yeah, certainly, and we've heard Democratic members of Congress express the same sentiment. They're worried about the ramifications. Let's talk about what happened at the border over the weekend. So CAIR is saying that around 150, mostly Iranian-Americans, were detained at length. Detained is your word. Some questioned for hours, upwards of 10 hours at the border. First, one of my first thoughts going into this was, well, shouldn't there be some increased level of scrutiny for individuals who are born in Iran, even if they're naturalized citizens, given the current climate? Is that an issue with you, if there is some level of additional scrutiny?
So the truth of the matter is when you become a United States citizen, you go through a process. You're asked all of the questions about what affiliations, organizations, if you had military experience, all of that is information is taken. Now, if after 40 years of being a United States citizen, just because of one action we've taken in the Middle East that has nothing to do with these individuals, they're being pulled aside as American citizens and then being questioned again, it doesn't seem logical to me. If that individual has no history of travel to Iran recently or any other indications of them being placed into secondary, I don't understand why they're, again, being pulled aside. And for the life of me, I can't understand why they would be pulled aside from 6 to 12 hours.
So customs agents in Blaine aren't going to ask them anything the U.S. government hasn't already asked them during the citizenship
Exactly,
process.
And many of these individuals also had Nexus cards. So now they've gone through another additional step and gone through more background checks and scrutiny. So I don't see how going and flat out putting someone in a room for 12 hours and then trying to get some information is going to help anyone.
Well, some of the information we heard from a woman who was traveling across back into the United States with her husband. She was born in Iran. They had 2 kids with them. The kids were born in the United States. She had said that they were asking her things about, relatives in Iran, relatives in the United States. Could it be that they didn't see her or her family as a potential threat, but given the situation with Iran, they were trying to get information about other people who might know something? Is that totally beyond anything reasonable?
So what we've seen in the past with Customs and Border Patrol is they ask for information, names of individuals. The vast majority of the time, those names are American citizens as well and residents of the United States. And what typically happens is then the FBI just blanket goes and asks all those individuals questions, much like a fishing expedition, trying to find something when there's nothing there. And all of that is based on the individual's Iranian heritage and background. And if that is the only cause for these additional questions, that's unlawful. There has to be some kind of suspicion. There has to be something else outside of their country of origin or nationality for these questions to be asked. And these fishing expeditions are not legal or warranted. If there is some kind of cause, if there is some kind of increased threat, which again, we haven't heard anything of, then if individuals have some kind of suspicion, you can ask them questions, but that wasn't the case here.
And quickly, as we're running out of time here, how do we make sense? How do my viewers make sense of the differing stories between what you're telling us and what Customs and Border Protection is saying? They're kind of making this out to be, well, on one hand, they just denied that anyone was detained or denied entry. And I don't know if that's semantics in terms of what we qualify as being detained. But now they're kind of saying, well, there's some increased security measures. So how do we make sense of the two stories that we're getting?
I think the facts speak for themselves. If you're taken to a parking lot, your keys are taken, your passport's taken, and you're put in a room for, again, between 6 to 12 hours, you have nowhere to go. You are detained, both legally and just practically. Additionally, Customs and Border Patrol is also the same agency, and the Department of Homeland Security is the same agency that said that we weren't caging kids at the southern border. And then pictures came out, and then it said, oh yeah, we are. So I think their accountability right now isn't very high in the eyes of the American people. We've seen them make misstatements. We've seen them make bold-faced lies. So again, I wouldn't really trust what they're saying.
Yeah, and we would reach out to them to try to get a little more clarity beyond just sort of a canned statement that they've been sending out. And is this situation rectified itself? Are these long wait times still happening?
So the last individuals that we've spoken to have been detained between 1 to 3 hours.
Okay.
Again, an American citizen with no suspicion should not be held that long at a border or at an airport, but at least they're not the ridiculous 6 to 12 hours that we had seen on Saturday.
All right, Masih Fouladi, Executive Director of the Council of American-Islamic Relations in Washington State. We appreciate your time and your insight on this, and this is clearly an issue that we're going to continue to follow as the stories develop on this. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.